What's going on, Lions fans? Welcome to the Pride of Detroit YouTube channel. I'm Miko, joined by my guy Morgan Cannon here, and we are here during the Lions bye week. Normally, we would be doing a film study, but we're actually going to be saving that for Monday because, as some of you guys know, I did have a poll up on Twitter, and it turns out that most of you guys wanted to see Lions versus Bucks have that film broken down. It was actually more going to tie between that and Seahawks, but somehow or another, Twitter decided that it was going to be Bucks, which is it should be fun, but at the same time, I'm not exactly looking forward to breaking down that Lions loss.
No, but it'll be some good stuff for us to watch because I do think, it'll be like, even if we just focus like maybe on, the red zone trips, right? Like lack of execution. And to me, that's when when you watch the film there, you see how every little thing matters so much because that's, in my opinion, when I watched the film the first time against the Bucks, just not doing the little things correctly, and it kept biting them.
Yeah. And so you guys can definitely look forward to that video. But the video that we're doing today, as you probably saw in the title or on the thumbnail, we're basically doing a state of the NFC North, right? Basically, we're 4 weeks into the season. The Lions hit their bye, so this seems like a good opportunity to just take a look at the NFC North, look at the landscape, look at where every team is sitting. The Lions are currently sitting at second in the division at 3-1. The Vikings, my bad, are atop the division at 4-0, and then you both have the Packers and the Bears both sitting at 2-2 on the season so far. So there's a good amount of stuff to talk about. I still feel like the NFC North is one of the toughest divisions in football. I think all of these teams have, especially when you start getting into division games, those games always seem to be highly contested, even when we think one team is on a down year or whatever the case may be. So what we're going to do today is we're basically going to start from the bottom of the division and then work our way up and talk about each of these teams. Probably not really talk much about the Lions, or at least talk about the Lions in contrast to some of these teams. So Morgan, let's go ahead and kick that off first with talking about the Chicago Bears, who, like I said, are sitting at 2-2 on the season. And it's a really interesting situation with the Bears because I think in one light, for me personally, the Bears look exactly like I thought they would look. I would say that their record is a little bit better than I thought it would be at 2 wins. But when you watch them on Sundays, this does not look like a really well fleshed out team. You can still see there's a lot of cracks in the armor when it comes to the Bears.
Yeah, and they're still young, and then you have a rookie quarterback back there who's getting pressured quite a bit. So Caleb Williams has had his good moments, he's had his bad moments, but you can tell, the offensive line not really being up to snuff right now is affecting how he's playing the game. So he's sitting at 61.7 completion percentage, 3 touchdowns, 4 picks. But he's been sacked 16 times. So you're averaging 4 a game. That's tough, man, especially for a rookie quarterback to be behind the sticks that often. And then you're asking him, you know how it is in the NFL, really, if when it's third and 15 plus, there's not a lot on the offensive coordinator's call sheet that he can go to and be like, yeah, I feel good about picking up 15 here, especially when you're playing a defense like Brian Flores in Minnesota. He's going to throw the kitchen sink at you there. And it's tough. It becomes really, really tough to execute. So, yeah, I think Williams will get better with time, hopefully, as just more reps and with live bullets and in the regular season. But right now, it's looking pretty rough, especially offensively. Their defense is playing good.
Yeah, I was gonna say their defense is, in my opinion, the only reason they have 2 wins on the season so far. Right, they've been able to commit some turnovers, get the offense on some shorter fields, and at least hold the opposing team at bay. No team has been able to really jump out against the Bears and really put them, super behind the sticks. I mean, all of their games have been relatively close, 24-17, a win against the Titans, a 13-19 loss against the Texans, a 21-16 loss against the Colts, and then you have a 24-18 win against the Rams. So the defense is doing their part in at least keeping these games close and at least giving the offense an opportunity to at least compete and kind of get their legs under them. But like you said, there's a number of things that are going wrong for this offense, and it does unfortunately start at the rookie quarterback. Caleb Williams, like I said when I said the Bears kind of look like what I thought they would. This is kind of what I honestly expected from Caleb Williams. A lot of what we saw, or at least the wow factor that we saw from Caleb Williams at USC, was a lot of that, hey, when he's able to take nothing and turn it into something. That's very hard to do at the next level. A lot of teams are going to a lot of opposing defenses are going to have a lot more faith in their units to be able to stop you in those situations. So if you want to go back 10, 11 yards retreating from a pass rush, they're not worried about you completing a pass downfield because it's just like the coverage is stickier, the pass rush gets there quicker. And the thing that it looks like Caleb Williams is really struggling with is being able to decipher what opposing defenses are doing before the snap. And that's the thing that's constantly getting him in trouble so far.
Yeah, and I hate to say it, but it ain't the Pac-12 anymore or whatever it's called now. Whatever,
Well, now they're in the Big Ten. Now USC is in the Big Ten.
It ain't the Big Ten either. You're not playing Indiana out there. So yeah, defenses are stickier. I think he'll get better. Like you mentioned, the pre-snap stuff that just comes with repetition. Obviously, he's a smart kid, and there's been some wow throws. Like his arm talent is there. Like no one's questioning that. As much as we don't like the Bears in this channel, like he went at one overall for a reason. The talent is there, so I think they'll get better. One bad thing, man, that Swift contract is looking rough. Like all you Ryan Poles lovers out there, man, that's not good.
Yeah, no. I mean, he's leading them in rushing, right? 161 yards on the season, 1 rushing touchdown. But yeah, he's only averaging 3 yards per carry. That's not good. That's not what you want to see out of your, RB1. On the flip side, he's doing everything else in the passing game, right? He's got 118 receiving yards, so he's balancing it out. Like it's not exactly what they probably want when it comes down to running the football, and that's probably another reason why Caleb Williams is having to have much more difficult third downs just to kind of work with. But yeah, the Bears definitely need to figure out their run game. It probably also lends itself to what you were saying earlier about the offensive line not quite being, well-rounded enough. You look at their other skill positions, DJ Moore is still DJ Moore, right? Keenan Allen has been dealing with some injuries, so he hasn't quite been able to have the impact that I think we all know that he's capable of. And then Rome Odunze has been really good, I think, for a rookie. I think it took him a couple games initially to kind of get his feet under him, but as him and Caleb Williams are adjusting to the NFL game, like they're starting to find their connection, and he's definitely taking advantage of Keenan Allen, missing a game or two so far this season already.
I love Rome Odunze's game. Like I think it's going to translate well. It just might, take a little bit of time here. And again, him being a rookie and Williams being a rookie, that's pretty tough. So yeah, I think they're going to continue I think they'll get better. I don't think they're going to be this, like some of these fans have them like winning 12, 13 games. I don't think that's going to happen, but I still think they could be playing competitive football in December. This division is just going to be really competitive.
Yeah, I mean, you look at their schedule, they do have some tough games still left. They still have to play the Commanders, who have been playing really good football so far this year. They have the Cardinals, they have the Packers, they have Minnesota, they still have us, and they have the 49ers. So, like, there's some tough games left on the schedule. They have Seattle as well. So there's some games where I think, like, they're really going to have to overcome some things. But at least, like, in the next 2 weeks, they have some winnable games going up against Carolina, going up against Jacksonville. So those would be the games that I would be looking at if you're a Chicago Bear fan, hoping that your team can find some level of continuity, some success, and hopefully get Caleb Williams really playing at his highest level.
Yeah, you get the Panthers tomorrow too.
Oh yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like you play the Panthers tomorrow, like that's very winnable.
Yeah, unless Andy Dalton lights them up, that'd be pretty funny too, though.
I was gonna say Andy Dalton is him and Joe Flacco. It's funny to like see them kind of like taking the reins of their respective teams with them having quarterback issues, and then it's just like, oh, it's like being back in like 2015.
Yeah, and like that's what I'm saying, man. They're both veterans. They can have big games. The Panthers are better than what they were showing earlier in the season. I think they're not quite that terrible, in my opinion. I think they have some okay players on their roster. But yeah, I don't think the Bears are going to find their way out of the NFC North cellar this year, even if they are competitive.
No, I think again, like we kind of said, I think at the beginning of the season, like this is probably where they'll end at the end of the year, right? At near the bottom of the NFC North. Shockingly enough, though, the Packers are also sitting there at 2-2. And I think with some of the stuff that we're at least hearing going on in Green Bay, they might give the Bears a run for their money, not because they don't have the talent, Morgan, but just because there seems to be some dysfunction going on in that facility.
Yeah, and I love that you mentioned, because the talent-wise, man, they, like, in my opinion, that's the second best looking roster in the NFL in the NFC North, after the Lions is Green Bay. But like you said, so Romeo Doubs, their receiver, he skipped the last 2 practices, apparently just unhappy with something. It hasn't really been clear. We were talking about it before we jumped on. It really hasn't been like put out there what he's officially unhappy about. But so him and Christian Watson are both listed as doubtful for their game against the Rams. Yeah,
they play the Rams this week. Yep.
So they're at the Rams, and yeah, Watson only has 8. Watson. Okay. Okay, got you. Yeah, Watson only has 8 targets on the year. Dobbs has 20. I don't really. It's interesting. I want to hear what he's upset about because, like we talked about before, he's third on the team in targets. He doesn't have a touchdown, but with Jordan Love being hurt, they haven't really been throwing the ball all around the yard. Like even when they did win games, it was, most of it was through, running the football and playing physical. So yeah, that's gonna be interesting to watch, man. That'll be a game to keep an eye out for tomorrow.
Yeah, I agree. I think, like I said, Green Bay's struggling this early in the season. It's a little bit of a shock. I think Jordan Love getting injured, week one against the Eagles really kind of put things, I guess, out of whack for them. But at the same time, like they went on to win 2 games with Malik Willis at quarterback. So it's really hard to say
True.
what to really expect out of Green Bay. I think, like you said, when you look at their roster, it feels like, okay, they should still be competing, for the division. But if these types of internal issues are going on with a wide receiver, like who else it makes you wonder who else is unhappy on this roster, right? Is it just Romeo Dobbs? Are there people maybe on the defense that aren't happy? And does that start to trickle down to the rest of the team, or are they able to compartmentalize and be like, hey, look, Dobbs has his issues, but the rest of the team is locked in and they can go out there and win games? It's going to be interesting to see that. Much like with the Bears, I think they still have some really tough opponents left on their schedule. They still have the Texans. They still have the Cardinals. They, again, also have to play the Niners. We'll have to see what happens with the Dolphins if they ever get Tua back this year. And if that's a possibility, then the Dolphins become a much bigger threat as far as a team that they have to play on their schedule. And they've already lost to the Vikings once, so that already gives them a loss in the division. So there's a lot of things that Green Bay is going to have to overcome. Again, outside of the fact that they have to play the Lions, and we know that's going to be a tough matchup for both teams, seeing as they split 1-1 last year. So I think I tend to have a little more faith in Green Bay that they will get things, back on track. It's just, I will say that I'm a little surprised that they came out of the blocks stumbling like this, and that, you drop a game to Minnesota, a really tight game, right? Losing 31-29, but still, like, Jordan Love didn't look good in that game. You can kind of say it's because of him just coming back from injury, but I think you find yourself in that situation where it's like, okay, but you won 2 games with Malik Willis when you kept the game plan fairly simple about running the football and just, making life easy for your quarterback. Do the Packers need to do more of that, even though they have Jordan Love back under center?
Yeah, and if you watch that game, I watched most of that game, and he didn't look comfortable on that knee, like with, in his drop backs, like hitting that back foot. He just was throwing off his back foot even more, and that's something he does a lot already. He's pretty good at it, to his credit, but he threw a lot of bad balls. When you go back and watch that tape, someone put like a little thread about that on Twitter the other day, and I was like, oh my gosh, like a lot of turnover-worthy plays were abundant, and that's a big reason why they were down 28-0 to start that game. Like Green Bay losing that game 31-29 was pretty remarkable, given the fact like they were down 28-0. Like Minnesota's jumped a couple teams this year like that. They did it to the Texans, where Houston looked like they just didn't even fly in from Texas, and they just got their butts whooped. In Minnesota, bless you. Speaking to Quentin Williams. But yeah, I think Green Bay is going to even it out. LaFleur is a good coach. The drama is a little weird. Like I said, I'll be anxious to hear a little more about like what actually is going on there, because the numbers and the feelings don't really match up. Like if Dobbs was sitting here with 5 targets through 4 weeks, sure. But he's got 20 of them. Like he's third on the team behind Reed and Dontavian Wicks. So I don't know. It's going to be something to watch out for.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the other thing to watch out for, and again, as Jordan Love comes back from injury, is to see how he continues to protect the ball, right? So far, he's got 6 touchdowns versus 4 interceptions. Like that's, again, not a great ratio, considering the fact that he missed 2 games. So like between 2 games, you've already gotten 4 interceptions. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Packers and Matt LaFleur kind of adjust their offense to kind of, again, limit the turnovers. And again, maybe they do just need to lean into that run game a little bit more, especially in the next couple of weeks when they have some opponents that they should be able to find some success in running the football against. So with that said, we're going to jump over the Lions because we kind of already know. We talk about the Lions every single week with the Lions sitting at 3-1. Again, maybe one loss is one where you're just kind of like, man, they should have got that one against the Bucs. They should be going into the bye 4-0, but you can't complain about 3-1, right? Like you're still very much in the hunt. And that leads us to the Minnesota Vikings that are currently perfect on the season at 4-0. And Morgan, you and I were having a pretty interesting conversation beforehand, and it really just boils down to, do you think the Vikings are for real? And I think there's a lot of people that are going back and forth on this, because it's not just that the Vikings are 4-0, right? It's who they've beaten on the road to being 4-0. They've beaten the Niners, they've beaten the Texans, and yes, they beat a bad Giants team, and then they beat a Packers team that, again, on paper, looks like they're better than 2-2. So I'll let you start because I think you're a little less of a believer in what the Vikings have currently accomplished.
Yeah, and this is kind of where I'm at with it. Like, I'm not completely like they're terrible, right? Like, I'm not going to get there. Like, I still think this is a team that could finish with, 8 to 10, 11 wins, unfortunately, just because they've gotten out to a good start. Like, starting out 4-0, it certainly helps. Same with starting out 3-1. Just puts you ahead of the blocks a little bit when it becomes, late November, December, when it really, really starts to count. My thing with the Vikings is, so Sam Darnold. So we know about Sam Darnold. I got respect for him still playing football because he has been through it, man. If y'all remember, Sam Darnold's first career start was the first game of the Matt Patricia era when he came to Ford Field and they whipped us. Not really because of Sam Darnold. The Lions turned the ball over a ton and it was just an ugly night, but he's playing really well right now. 932 yards, 11 touchdowns to just 3 picks, almost a 69% completion percentage. Can Sam Darnold sustain that for the rest of the year? I'm skeptical. I don't think he's terrible. You're playing under Kevin O'Connell, who in my opinion is going to become like a Shanahan figure in Minnesota. Like, I really like Kevin O'Connell. However, defensively, they forced 12 turnovers through 4 games, right? So that's 3 a game. That's going to be helpful too. They're only allowing 75 yards per game on the ground right now. We know about Brian Flores. Their whole deal is to stop the run early and then get to those third and long so Brian Flores can get creative and heat your quarterback up and get those turnover-worthy plays. I just don't know that they're going to be, in the conversation for like 1 seed in the NFC when it's all said and done. I think it's going to bounce back to average, regress to the mean, if you will. And that's kind of where I'm at with Minnesota. I still think this is going to be a Lions Green Bay race for the North. Well,
Yeah,
I know you think differently, so hit it.
Yeah, I do. I do think we're kind of seeing things shift, and it is early, right? So I don't want to be like overreacting, but I do think how the Vikings are winning right now does matter, and I think some of the stuff that they're doing right now will and can be carried on throughout the rest of the season. The turnovers, yeah, like right, having 8 turnovers in 4 games is some freaky
12.
numbers, right? 12, my bad. So yeah, like
12.
those are some freaky numbers, right? To have that level of being able to force turnovers. But then you look at kind of going back to what you were saying about Brian Flores, he's the type of defensive coordinator. He puts a lot of pressure on opposing quarterbacks. So when you're blitzing at such a high rate and you're not giving quarterbacks an opportunity to really settle in the pocket and they're having to force throws or make passes under duress, it kind of lends itself to those types of opportunities. And it just so happens that these players are capitalizing on those opportunities and getting turnovers, whether those be interceptions or fumbles. So I think with that combination of things, right, an aggressive defense that, wreaks havoc on quarterbacks is going to lend yourself to more turnover-worthy plays. And I think the Vikings are at least showing that they will capitalize when given those opportunities. So am I necessarily saying that you'll see 3 turnovers per game from the Vikings for the rest of the season? No. But I think they play the Jets this week. I think it's very likely that you get 2 out of the Jets, right? Aaron Rodgers has looked healthy, obviously, but I mean, the Jets offense isn't by any means prolific at this point. And I think you could still force them into some really tough situations. We talked about their run defense being top 5 in the NFL right now in terms of yardage and just limiting rushing touchdowns. Again, if you're able to get teams behind the sticks and now you're forcing your opposing offenses to work out of 3rd and longs, and it gives you that opportunity, like you were saying, to be more aggressive, again, lends itself to more turnover-worthy plays. And again, that defense getting off the field and your offense getting more opportunities. I'm not going to sit here, going to the offense, I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm a full believer in Sam Darnold. But I think what we've seen over the last few years, when you look at the likes of Geno Smith, Baker Mayfield, Jared Goff, more of these quarterbacks are getting with coordinators and head coaches that seem to understand their game. And when they understand their game and they are able to give them a game plan and a play style that just fits into what they're asked to do, I think these are the results that you're starting to see. Is that, again, Sam Darnold is by no means is lighting the league on fire in terms of yardage, right? He's only averaging probably about 250 yards per game, something like that. but he's playing mistake-free football. 11 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. It's essentially the Jared Goff style of quarterbacking, right? Like limit the turnovers, play smart, get the football to your playmakers. And when you have playmakers like Justin Jefferson, when you have an Aaron Jones, Jordan Addison is just not coming back. They're getting a lot out of Jalen Naylor that I don't think a lot of people probably expected. Like you start combining all those things, it's really
Really good
looking like,
offensive
okay,
line.
yeah, and a really good offensive line too. So like everything is kind of trending in the right direction where it's very similar to what I say about Jared Goff. You don't need him to be amazing. You just need him to be consistent. And if the Vikings can keep that with Sam Darnold, and when you have a run game that's like effective, it makes that a little easier. Like, okay, we're not asking Sam to do everything. And even when we ask Sam to do things, Justin Jefferson makes up for 90% of what things could go wrong. You know?
Yep.
So
I love that point you're making. Go ahead, though. Finish up. I got.
Yeah. Oh, and the last thing I was going to say is, so you have all of this, how the offense is currently playing. And we just found out this week that the Vikings opened up the practice window for TJ Hockenson. I'm not saying TJ Hockenson completely takes this to another stratosphere, but we can't deny the fact that a healthy TJ Hockenson is an extra layer of playmaking that the Vikings just don't currently have. Yes, you have Justin Jefferson. Yes, you're just now getting Jordan Addison back. I mentioned Jalen Naylor and Aaron Jones. But TJ Hockenson is that guy that gets to now operate in the middle of the field, and that's going to make opposing defenses have to make more decisions on. You're almost by default have to double team Justin Jefferson, but okay, well now TJ is back and he's going to destroy you in the middle of the field, or he's going to exploit weaknesses in the middle of the field as well. So this offense is going to get better. And so I think that's the thing that makes Minnesota, again, not a Super Bowl favorite, but when we're talking about, because it starts with winning your division, that's where I think they have the most likelihood of this becoming a Lions-Vikings race for who's going to basically end up on top in the NFC North.
I feel you. Like, I like all those points, and I think that it clicked in my big old head here while you were talking. I think my biggest issue that I think they're going to big time regress to the mean is not the offense. I think Sam Darnold is going to look okay in this Kevin O'Connell offense, because I think Kevin O'Connell's like going to end up being the closest thing you have to Shanahan in San Francisco. I think he's that good of a coach, that good of an offensive mind. His players really like him. You can tell like they're in a good spot. GM wise, I don't know, because they've had some pretty bad draft classes.
Yeah,
like really bad ones. And this is where I'm going to pivot. I think the defensive personnel is just not that good, man. I think that the defensive like output right now for them is a little bit of an aberration, because just quick run through it. Giants, maybe the worst offense in football right now. Daniel Jones is probably going to be a backup next year. They played the Niners. They won by 4 points. But that's no Christian McCaffrey, no Debo, basically Purdy and Kittle back there, and Ayuk. And I watched most of that game. They looked pretty good there. They just boat raced the Texans. They didn't look like they came prepared. Stroud looked bad that day. Everything kind of looked bad. It was almost like adjacent to when the Lions went to Baltimore in 2023. You're just like, dang, like, yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, just boat raced them. And then the Packers Vikings game. So that just happened last week. So I say all that to say, I just don't think the personnel is there offensively, or defensively. Offensively, it's there. Offensive line's good. And I love the point that you made. Arnold could easily be in that Baker Mayfield, Goff tier, right? Where everything like this offense isn't. You're a part of the offense, but it's not amazing because of you. It's amazing because of the sum of the parts. 100% agree there. But just defensively, I just don't see personnel wise. Like, Greenard's a good player. They signed him. You got Van Ginkel, the outside linebacker from Miami, the white guy with the long hair. You got Cashman and Pace Jr., both good players against the pass, but they're both under 240 pounds. Harrison Phillips at your nose tackle. You got Tillery and Bullard. And then when you go to the nickel, you got Shaq Griffin, Byron Murphy, and Stephon Gilmore as your corners. Good safety duo, Cam Bynum and Harrison Smith. I just don't think that's a recipe. Like, you play a team like the Lions and you're that light in the butt. I'll say it that way because I don't like to cuss on YouTube. I think you're going to have problems stopping the run. And that's where I think this defense is going to, I don't think they're going to be bad, but I think they're going to regress to like, an average defense. And that's not going to be enough to keep this thing afloat. Like, personnel wise, I take the Lions personnel over theirs 11 times out of 10.
And I agree with you on that point. And I think their defense, to your point, I think will see some regression as they get later in the season, as they play some of these offenses that are a little healthier and that are a little more dynamic, right? Because to your point, yes, they've been very good against the run so far. But again, your running backs that you've gone against are Devin Singletary, Jordan Morgan, I believe, Joe Mixon, and Josh Jacobs, right? Like Josh Jacobs is the best running back that you've seen of that mix so far. And that's something that I think is going to change. You have to play the Lions and their offensive line. You have to go against Monty and Gibbs. You're going to go against Kyron Williams. You're going to go against Jonathan Taylor. So you're going to see some more explosive run games. You have to go against Tony Pollard later this year. So, and they have to go against Bijan. So like you are going to see some more explosive run games than what they've seen in these first 4 games. I think another area where they could get exploited to, again, lean into your point even more, is the pass game. While they've been very good against shutting down the run, they've been giving up some yardage in the past. And that's something that I think once you get further into the season, if you combine that with, hey, you get some more explosive run offenses that are able to put up yards against you, and you're not able to get those 3rd and long situations, well, your corners haven't shown the ability to be locked down like that. And so
your best corner is probably
issue.
Bro, your best corner is a 34-year-old Stephon Gilmore. All right, with respect, I'm about to be 34 in 5 days. That's old though, brother. Okay, to be able to, you're gonna guard Jameson Williams at 34.
I was gonna say you have a 34-year-old Stephon Gilmore. You have a 35-year-old Harrison Smith. Byron Murphy is still young, but like, yeah, that's a lot of talent that you're gonna have to make up for, right? So
that's what I'm saying, man. I'm the front 7. Like I like Payson Cashman against the pass, but do I like Payson Cashman trying to shed Penei Sewell and Frank Ragnow and Kevin Zeitler? Not as much, man. That's where I think. And to your point with the Mixon, I like Joe Mixon in the Texans ground game, but that was almost like comparing it to the ball. They had to abandon the run so early because they sneezed twice and they were down 21-0 because it was like 3-and-out touchdown, 3-and-out touchdown, boom, boom, boom. So, that's where I'm with them. But I love, this has been a good discourse though, because offensively, you're the one who made me click. Like that's a good offense. Like, and Sam Darnold doesn't have to be great. I love that you laid it all out because he doesn't have to be. Just don't be a goofball, right? And the offense is going to be good. So, great point.
And so, yeah, I think that's another thing that's going to make the NFC North just very, very interesting as we continue to watch it play out, right? I think one thing that we will see that that Lions fans need to be aware of is like, yeah, I don't think this team is going to be able to afford too many slip-ups, because I do think like there's going to be some games that the Vikings are going to have a tougher matchup, and some of these wins, like we talked about, a lot of these are a touchdown difference between them winning and losing. So it's a lot of one-score games for the Vikings so far, and we saw how that went for them a couple years ago, where they were on the winning side of that, but we've also seen them be on the losing side of that. Yeah. So I say all that to say, like, the Lions themselves are going to have to be on their P's and Q's. They can't be looking at the Vikings, hoping the Vikings slip up, because maybe they're just on one of those runs this year where, hey, they're on the winning side of a lot of these one-score games. And if that's the case, hey, the Lions have to take care of their business. They can't allow too many of those, Tampa Bay Buccaneer games types of things to happen, where your offense is slow going or anything like that. Like, everything is going to have to be churning in the right direction, because at least for the first 4 games, that seems to be the case for the Vikings. Everything is just working in the right direction for them right now. And we'll have to see as the season goes on if that changes up at all.
Yep. And like Dan Campbell said, excellent point again, because if you watch the locker room celebration after the Seahawks win, he's like, we don't need to be looking over there, seeing if they won. You just need to win the one in front of you and just start stacking them. And that's 100%, like, to your point, I love that he's talking about that early, because some guys are in there like, dang, the Vikings won again, because you'd rather just be comfortable at the top by yourself. But to your point, probably not going to be like that this year. So just keep stacking them, man. Enjoy your little vacation this week, and let's shift to Dallas and go get a win in Jerry's world.
Absolutely, man. So guys, that's pretty much going to do it for our state of the NFC North. Let us know in the comment section below, what do you think of how things are currently shaking up on the NFC North? Who do you see probably coming out on top? Who do you think is the Lions' biggest competition? And if you're a fan of any of the other NFC North teams, let us know what you think of your team's chances right now, what you are most excited about or what you're most concerned about as the season kind of progresses. Again, this is only 4 games into the season. We'll try to make sure to do this again, like around week 8, when there's been like another 4 games, because I think this is a really good way of like checking in and just seeing how every team is performing. But yeah, let us know what you guys are feeling in the comment section, how you guys are feeling about your respective teams, or again, what you're most concerned about. And like always, if you're looking for more Detroit Lions content, all you have to do is go over to PrideOfDetroit.com. There's new articles being uploaded over there daily. I think BNAP just put up an article earlier this week about the Lions winning the Super Bowl and why he gives like 5 good reasons on why he thinks that's the case. So I think that's a really good piece to check out if you want. And like I said at the top of this video, Morgan and I are going to be doing our film study of the Lions Bucks game. So be sure to stay tuned for that. That'll probably get pushed out Monday night sometimes. So just stay tuned to the YouTube channel to be able to catch that once we upload it. So with all that said, thank you guys for taking the time to watch. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. And yeah, I'm Miko. He's Morgan. Thank you guys for taking the time to watch, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.